Good morning, Philadelphia. Welcome to another great edition of Race on Main. We have a terrific guest today, Todd Parker.
PCB apps.
PCB apps. And it's not apps like apps on your phone. It's a little bit more advanced than that, but it's a show on technology.
It's all about technology in the back office.
The back office of corporations and workflow and handling all that and all the great stuff that goes on to keep business running.
Yep. And the president's in Cuba.
Yeah, so Cuba, welcome to Race on Main. Don't forget to check us out at raceonmain.com. Good morning, Philadelphia, and welcome to another edition of Race on Main Street. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show today. We have our guest, Todd Parker from PCB Apps, who's going to be out in a little while. But it's a great day here in Philadelphia. It's spring is here, and it feels good. So, but before we get started, as always, I want to introduce my partner, who's looking a little green today.
Feeling a little green today.
Yeah, you don't look so hot, actually.
It was just, Betsy got sick Sunday, and I got sick yesterday, and I just basically laid in bed for 14 hours, and I'm here.
All right, that's
about all it's going to be.
All right, that's kind of all it ever really is, right?
Right.
So, anyway, speaking of concussions, we were just talking about the concussion that was delivered to me as the result of you.
As my fault.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
We'll continue to that will never leave.
No. Well, it's a permanent scar.
It is. It is, and it affects us on a daily basis.
That's right. So anyway, we have a good show today. Pretty interesting
Todd
show.
Todd Parker is here. That'll be interesting stuff. But before we get into that, Main Street is talking about Cuba.
Yeah, so again, we're a little, our shooting's a little bit different from the timing, but the president's been
by the time this airs, you and I will have vacations planned to Havana, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've heard it's beautiful. Actually, the beaches in Havana are beautiful.
They say that it's it's a beautiful island, and
yeah.
it's been a thing. But as we shoot this show, President Obama is in Cuba this week.
Yep.
And as always, we're interested in what this means for Main Street.
Sure.
So let's start with the bad. Let's go the bad news and the good news second.
Yeah.
All right. So the bad news is normalizing relations with Cuba may actually stop the flow of Cubans escaping, and therefore they fill certain jobs in certain sectors of our economy that may not be so readily available. And as cliched as it sounds, there is a portion of the service sector that is filled by these people who may not be as readily available for employers.
Well, to me, that to me is actually that's a whole debate in and of itself. I think that actually drives commerce, because you're going to have to pay people more, you're going to have to do more. There's more. You create almost like more competition, I think.
Well, as in all things, yeah, it's a double-sided coin.
Right.
But again, from an employer standpoint, it may be a little bit dicey. But from a job availability standpoint, the question is whether or not Americans will do these jobs.
Yeah, they will. They will.
I hope so.
Yeah, they will. Or somebody will develop a technology to help with them. There's always a call to action to fix something.
I agree with that.
It's got to be more good than bad.
You know what I thought was really interesting also was we talked last week. We had a show last week, and one of the things we talked about was the refugee crisis in Europe.
Yes. And
we talked about how there's something like 350,000 refugees from Iraq and Syria and whatnot that are Do you know that since 2012, 250,000 Cuban refugee immigrants have come to this country, and I think I just want to point out that just illustrates how powerful our economy is.
Sure.
All right. I mean, 350,000 is a bigger number than 250,000, but 350,000 people want to flood into Europe, and Europe is figuring out how not to collapse.
Right.
250, and that's just from Cuba.
Right.
250,000 people flood into
Miami,
goods.
because they're coming in
we
through,
don't care.
right, through certain
We just
spots.
absorb them into
Right.
our economy, and our economy just goes on.
Yeah.
So it's not, you know, just as a function of the whole woe is me thing about the economy and things that happen.
Right.
Our economy is a $13 trillion monster.
It's a monster.
It can handle anything.
Well, I don't know if it can handle anything, but it's pretty durable. And you look at even just from the last 6 or 7 years how it got rocked. And if you think about it, it was rough times, a little bit patchy times.
Yeah,
More so
no
for maybe
question.
folks who are already retired, fixed income type folks.
Sure.
But it seems like everybody, you're right, weathered the storm even then. So we can really, you know, we develop industries, things like that, in order to cover what we need.
Do what we have to do.
Yeah, it seems it.
So the good side of this is that if we do, we do create an emerging market in Cuba. We're talking about 11 million Cuban consumers,
Yep.
which is maybe not the most, not the biggest market in the world, but I mean, these people are starved for product.
It's 11 million more people to potentially bring stuff to, whatever
Sure.
it might be.
And the class of Cuban entrepreneurs in Cuba is expanding. Something like 500,000 business applications were registered in Cuba over the past year.
For just all sorts of various different businesses.
Yeah, and it's going to be. It seems to me in reading the source material, it seems to me that most of it's going to be a service-oriented nature.
Yeah.
They're not building factories.
Right.
But
Right.
it's going to be a situation where we're going to have a new vacation. I wasn't kidding about that. We're
No,
gonna
it's
have
a
new vacation
tourism spot.
destination.
That's right. That's right.
And people are going to flood there because it's 90 miles off the
It's
coast of
close.
Florida.
That's right.
It's exotic.
Yep.
And it's a place that nobody in our lifetime has
That's not
been
true.
to. Well,
no,
not,
that's not true
well,
because I know actually someone who was just there.
people have gotten there.
Yeah, no, they were there for some type of college rowing program. A friend of ours that you know, and said that it's what they got to see and where they were, and they were tied in with the colleges, things like that. That it's kind of like a throwback to the 50s to some extent, and it's pretty neat. Like the cars are older, more interesting. It's very, very neat to the point where I know somebody who wanted to try to create an export business, if it was possible, of parts for cars, for older cars into Cuba. So
Well, I think that's something. I think that to as in all things, we always reference the cultural icon of The Godfather.
Right.
And right at the moment that they were going to start building the biggest, best, nicest casinos, the revolution took place.
Right.
I got to believe that there's going to be a huge amount of service industry.
Yes.
What do they call it? The leisure industry.
right, travel,
The-
leisure.
Right.
Yeah.
The hospitality industry is going. That
gonna
island
explode.
is going to explode.
Yeah,
It's
I
absolutely
mean,
gonna
it is
explode.
going to explode, and you're right because it's so close.
Yeah.
That's a huge. So you have this exotic place, very, very, very
Yeah,
close.
and if they could just get the human rights things, in line, which they will.
they will. I mean, that's
We'll
what we'll
insist on it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's going to if that doesn't get fixed, that's going to slow progress,
Yeah.
and I don't think anybody wants to slow this progress at this point.
No, I don't think so either.
No.
I think that the Raul Castro, who's
Right.
now running the show down there, I think he's got an understanding that. I mean, obviously President Obama shows up and they swept the streets and they did all
Yeah,
they scrubbed the place.
That's right.
But
you pretty it up.
Yeah, but I mean that's going to happen when any head of state.
That's right.
Comes and
That's right.
And then they'll figure out a way to make it so that it's not a circumstance where the human rights violations are so intense.
Right.
And then we'll go on vacation there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wait and see. I mean, you'll get to learn a lot more to see what's really happening at this point. I think moving forward as things start to develop.
It's going to be a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
good for Cuba, good for us, good for Main Street.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
All right. So Todd Parker. Todd Parker is our guest today. He is the business development manager of PCB Apps Incorporated, a company that is heavily involved in back office synergies. So we have some interesting questions about how that is going to affect Philadelphia and Main Street. So welcome, Todd.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Pleasure to be here.
Great
Yeah.
to have you here.
that's right. Thanks, Todd. We appreciate you being here. So, Stu mentioned PCB apps. That doesn't exactly jump out at you in terms of like telling us what y'all do. So give us a look at what that means.
Sure.
What does it illustrate?
So first off, PCB Apps stands for Pioneers in Computer and Business Applications.
Okay.
We were started about 15 years ago. Currently, we have about 200 employees. We have offices in 9 different countries. We're headquartered in Somerset, New Jersey. We have an office in the UK. We have a training facility right here in Philadelphia. We have an office in Saudi Arabia and in India as well. We do a number of things. Primarily, what we are is a J.D. Edwards and Oracle ERP integration partner. Platinum partner with Oracle, with J.D. Edwards. Very strong relationship. In addition to that, we also have a business partnership with AT&T. What that allows us to do is use their data centers all across the country to pass on those resources to our clients. Furthermore, we also have a partnership with IBM as well. So in a nutshell, that's who we are. Now what we do, as I mentioned ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning. So what is that? Well, basically what that is management software that allows an organization to create applications for back-end resources. We spoke before the show a little bit about HR, accounts payable, inventory. Basically any organization, small or large, that would have processes that would need to be automated, that would have dated systems that would need to be upgraded. Perhaps they're using something else. Perhaps they're using SAP and they're very unhappy with it, which happens a lot as well. So they want to migrate from SAP over to Oracle. So we would assist with any of those type processes.
So I have a question about that. So all these different items are really, it almost reminds me of this sort of behind the scenes stuff that goes on with so many businesses that are employing Main Street America, that are putting people to work. It's those programs behind the scenes that are allowing really folks to do their jobs or do them very efficiently, or both really. So it's kind of interesting how it's this stuff that you don't necessarily always see or take for granted that you need every day in order to run an operation.
Absolutely. You never realize what kind of bandwidth is actually involved. Obviously, when businesses first started, it was pen to paper. Well, that doesn't exist anymore. Then it was spreadsheets. Well, even spreadsheets now are outdated. So really, it's a lot of automated processes. It's customized software to do exactly what a company needs to do, to have it customized to their specific needs and requirements.
Yeah, it's great.
It's interesting.
Pen to paper.
Pen to paper.
Not too much of that anymore. So you're right.
Well, this is all printed. It's not.
No,
it's not
I
like we sat down and
know.
wrote
Hey,
it
look,
out.
I'm looking around at an awful lot of technology. So
Yeah,
it's
absolutely,
you know.
absolutely. So let's get into the Philadelphia idea. What is PCB Apps' involvement with the city of Philadelphia?
Sure. So in terms of the city of Philadelphia, we're doing a couple of things. First off, we're working with a DC 33 union. And what we're doing with them is it's a benefit system. It's called eMember Plus. This is for all the 20,000 members of this particular union. And basically what we do is we handle all of the employee benefits and administration for the DC 33 union. In addition to that, we're also working with Peter Matthews, who is the president of the union, to create jobs. I mentioned we have a training facility here in Philadelphia. So what we will do is we will hire people, residents of Philadelphia, and we'll train them on certain aspects of J.D. Edwards, manufacturing, functional, distribution, where their strengths are. And once we train them, we'll hire them. And once we hire them, we will find them jobs.
It's interesting.
Well, that's sort of a good thing for Main Street, isn't it?
I mean, it's certainly a good thing for Main Street. It's certainly a great thing for Main Street, Philadelphia, New Jersey, the surrounding area where we are. That you can't beat that. That's amazing. So when you talk about like being an Oracle partner, you know, what does that mean? You know, because there's a lot, I get it, we've talked about it before, and I get it just from my business dealings and things like that. But from an educational standpoint, when you look at, you know, what's out there and somebody who's watching this, what does that mean? It runs a lot of stuff out there that people don't, you know, who aren't necessarily working with it, they might not know what that really means. So give us the what it looks like.
Sure. So Oracle, J.D. Edwards Oracle, it's a huge organization. It's global. Now obviously they can't handle the requests of every single client of theirs. So what they'll do is they'll work with partners like PCB Apps, like many other partners as well, in certain niche markets. We happen to specialize in manufacturing. It's a big vertical for us. Retail is a big vertical for us. Pharmaceutical is a big vertical for us. So in those verticals, we are very, very strong. We have a lot of working knowledge. We understand the processes. We have a way of doing things that is very, very efficient. So Oracle will come to us, or customers of Oracle will come to us directly and say, hey, we've got this system, we're using Enterprise 9.1. We need to migrate to Enterprise 9.2. And we'll plan it out. And on a grand scale, one of our customers who is in the Midwest, they have 25 offices globally. So we basically have to plan out how all of these migrations are going to take place. And this isn't just an overnight type of thing. This is something that can take weeks, months, even years to go across 25 offices, because you have to make sure that everything is perfect. And what we found is when we do these type of migrations, we're able to streamline our processes. The customer I just mentioned, they had 2 offices in Mexico. So we went down there, and the first migration took 6 months. Second migration only took 4 months, because we were able to learn and understand what we could do to streamline the process.
That's interesting.
No, so when you talk about having these processes, these system processes for a particular company, is the size of the company, is that a factor, or are smaller companies involved in this type of these migrations and setting up these systems?
It could be. Typically, we see mid-sized to large cap companies. Mm-hmm. Smaller companies, it may not be financially feasible for them to do this. It may not even be necessary. Typically, the companies that we deal with are the Fortune 500s, mm-hmm. GSK, Pfizer, Amway, Berry Plastics. All of those are big, giant companies, and that's when we're really able to bring our knowledge to the table.
So given that circumstance, then let's jump back to the idea of bringing people in and training them mm-hmm. for the positions that are needed to run these systems. Now that program, is there a necessary background for the people who come into your programs? Like you say, the training center in Philadelphia, mm-hmm. is there any necessary background that needs to take place?
Preferably a technology background mm-hmm. would be number one, if not a technology aptitude. Because even if you don't necessarily have a technology background, if you have the aptitude to learn, that definitely would work as well. I'll give you another example. With the city of Philadelphia itself, we have a healthcare record system and practice management in place. It's actually called Easy Practice. And this is where we maintain all of the employee healthcare records. This is actually done through one of our sister companies, Perdix Data Systems. So not only are we working with a particular union in Philadelphia, we're working actually with the city of Philadelphia itself.
That's interesting. When you go through this type of training, so it's really anybody can apply for it, or is it something that you're accepted into, or how does that process work? So I have an aptitude for technology, and I want to take a look at this, and I get in touch with you guys. Like, what's the next step type of things that they need to do?
So our policy is that we try to hire between 5 and 10 people every month. Now, if you go on the PCB Apps website, which is pcbapps.com, there's a career section. Under the career section, you can drill down manufacturing, functional, distribution. Basically, where your interest level is, where your aptitude is, and where you think you would be a good fit. Then we would sit down with you. We'd say, hey, this is where we see you in terms of our company. We would bring you onto the payroll. Now, we have, as I mentioned, we have over 200 employees on our payroll. And then we actually have a whole team of recruiters. And I oversee several of these individuals, and they will go out and they will promote our employees and find them placement opportunities.
It's interesting. It's a lot, and that's a lot of people to be hiring on a month-to-month basis.
It is. Yeah.
On a continual, hey, I'm gonna keep hiring.
There's obviously a need as companies need to streamline their systems.
Yeah.
They need people that are capable of running these things.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I just love the idea of people being hired in Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And
being retrained for what is essentially a 21st century platform.
Right. So you have somebody who might not necessarily have this great technical background, but yet they have the aptitude, like you said, and they have the desire to do it. Now all of a sudden it opens up opportunities that I bet a lot of people don't realize are potentially out there as a Main Street position in this area. So it's good to know about. So the one last, and everybody can get the data on this or the information on this. All you have to do is go to www.raceonmain.com and we'll have that all listed as well moving forward. So I know that there's an event coming up, like sort of like I'm going to call it an educational event for folks in your industry in Las Vegas next month, I guess.
It is next month, yes.
Okay, so what goes on with that? It sounds like from what we've talked about, there's quite a few opportunities in terms of your industry to really, you talk about re-educating yourself within the industry that's out there. So what goes on with that?
Absolutely. So the event is called Collaborate. It's at the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, and basically this is a technology and applications forum for the Oracle community. Typically there are nearly about 6,000 participants, and they come in all of the different companies like us. We'll discuss sort of the latest, greatest, what we're doing, what we found works. The two big things right now is utilization of the cloud. That's huge, because you can really get a much better functionality within your company if you are able to utilize the cloud. You cut down on your bandwidth, you cut down on your hardware. The other thing in conjunction with that is disaster recovery, huge as well. You need to have the resources in place. The day and age that we're living in now, between earthquakes and floods and fires and who knows what else, you really have to have a system in place so that your data is not lost and you can be up and running within minutes.
I know somebody who had it's interesting that you say that, and I've promoted this before, and I know with the cloud more and more folks are going to it. It almost seems like when you hear of people who aren't in the cloud, it's like, what's taking you so long kind of thing. But they had not too long ago a fire in their server room, and they spent huge amounts of money recovering the data from their servers, and they thought they had some redundancy with it because there were several servers, but there was a device in their server room that caught on fire, burned the whole building down, and nobody got hurt. But that data it took months to get it, which is obviously a huge problem, and a huge cost to it. It was like, I'm going to say it was like in the tens, if not 20s of thousands of dollars for somebody to try to recover the data. So if you're a business out there and that's what you're relying on, that could be a real, things happen, fires happen, floods happen, and there is a huge cost to Main Street America, Main Street businesses if those things were to take place. So it's obviously something smart to take a look at, probably sooner rather than later.
Sure. You had Las Vegas is coming up, but you had just recently attended an Oracle Partner Summit.
I did, yes. Last month I attended an Oracle Partner Summit in Denver, Colorado, which is where Oracle is headquartered. And again, that was a group of the Oracle partners coming together, sharing ideas. It's a really nice community because we all have certain niche areas and specializations. We're able to share ideas, and we're even able to share resources. I'll give you an example. I was speaking with one of the companies out there, and I had just had a call the other day from NASA. And NASA said we would really like somebody who can bring knowledge of aerospace to our program, because we want to incorporate this knowledge into our program. Well, my company doesn't really have that particular skill set. So I was speaking with another company out there, and they say, yes, we actually do have a skill set in the aerospace industry. We work with Boeing. So I was able to fulfill the requirement of NASA by networking with my colleagues and partners.
It's an interesting thing, and as we sort of head out, what's interesting to me about it is that you bring these people together who really compete against each other, but yet it's sort of like a think tank, type organization that promotes everybody. It seems like, I would imagine, the folks that sort of grab hold of that, even though you're sitting with your competition, there's lots of benefits for everybody. There's plenty of business in the Main Street and Upper Main Street world of business, so why not sit down and make things better for the rest of us as a collaborative force? So it's kind of neat. So let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you like to talk about on the way out. What do you have
Todd,
here?
Thanks for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
Todd,
you.
it was great. It was great. Thank you. So,
well, fun stuff on the way out today. We're going to talk about The Economist just came out with a list. So this is The Economist.
okay.
So these guys are experts. Top 10 threats to the global economy. Now, obviously...
I know the number one.
Go ahead.
The giant volcano that you talk about in Yellowstone. Yeah, it's
that
60,000 years overdue
that is
for
a
eruption.
huge threat to the global economy. If the volcano in Yellowstone erupts,
no more
the
economy.
global economy is pretty much over with. However, interestingly, the economists
didn't
did
make the
not
list.
consider that as the thing, and they did not. And appetite for destruction also was not on the list either. So I thought,
Wait, Todd doesn't understand this. The Guns N' Roses' appetite for destruction comes up every show, so they make fun of me about it. But go ahead. All right, so
not obviously, but they feel that the number one threat to the global economy is if China has a hard landing.
yeah,
Now, we talked about China a couple shows ago, and we don't think they're going to have a hard landing, but
No.
if they were to, it probably would be. But anyway, we try to, and like 4 of the 10 have to do with the European Union.
of course.
Greek exiting, the
Yep.
UK quitting, the whole thing falling apart,
Right.
that kind of thing. I got to tell you, we try to stay away from politics.
Right.
But number 6 on the list, the number 6 threat to the global economy.
All right, Stu doesn't share this stuff with me. It's always like I got to try to figure it out.
Right.
It's going to be something like Donald Trump being president.
It is Donald Trump being elected president of the United States is the 6th biggest threat to the global economy,
You know what?
according to the Economist.
Yeah, shame on them. Come on.
I'm just saying.
What do you think? People are going to stop? Look, so here's the thing. I'm going to set everybody at ease right now, okay?
Yes.
If corporate earnings are good, there is no threat.
You know what I think is funny?
End of
And
discussion.
we talk about this all the time, and I was having a discussion with our brother Ira the other night, and as you know, he's a screaming liberal.
Yeah.
And he's shouting about the election. I said, you really should spend less time worried about who the president of the United States is and more time worried about who the president of Goldman Sachs is.
Or the president, I was going to say, of General Electric.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what matters in terms of the economy
Right.
in 99% of the time. Right. How do you get things right with the economy? You know what? There's got to be good, positive corporate earnings. That's really where, if you're going to boil it down to one thing, it's not Donald Trump. It's not, you don't want the European Union crashing or having problems because that will hurt corporate earnings.
Exactly. That's
Right.
why it's a problem, not because of who the president is. But,
Right.
with Todd and Oracle and everything, their corporate earnings are just going to go up and up and up because everything's going to be integrated. And
Well, I mean, hey, look, that's the way
it's all good.
that's what you want. I mean, you want positive cash flow, good corporate earnings. Those are the things that really, really drive the economy. And also, as part of that, piggybacking on what Todd said, is good, solid employment. You
Yeah.
know, but that drives corporate earnings
I'm
because
much
when
more
people
concerned-
are employed, they buy stuff, and
I'm
when they
much more
buy stuff,
concerned-
corporate earnings go up.
All right, I'm much more concerned about number 10, which is a collapse in investment in the oil sector because which would oil prices are so low,
Right.
that they're not going to invest in R&D. So I'm much more concerned about that.
I wouldn't be concerned about that either. That's a short-term thing. The oil companies have this mastermind. They need to get rid of some of the other energy groups. They drive the prices down. I'm convinced. I'm a conspiracy guy, but I'm convinced that.
There you go.
They drive it down, drive them out of the marketplace. And over the next 24, 36 months, you'll get your wish. You'll pay $5 at the pump, and you won't have to worry about the research and development. It'll all be
go.
there.
Well, get us out of here because
Yeah.
Jeff the cameraman's having a heart attack.
Yeah, so so I just want to make a quick thank you out to a group that's out there that's helping the community in a big way. It's called Mainline Deputy Dog. And what they do, and you can go to mldd.org and find out tons of information about them. It's a group that decided they were going to help save primarily dogs that were abandoned and left for kill, that kind of stuff. But they wanted to do more than just be, rescuing animals. There's a lot of folks that do that. So what they do is they go out and they scour all the places that you could find a dog anywhere. They look to evaluate dogs that could then be trained at no cost as a service dog. So they go in, they train the dogs, service dogs, and next thing you know, folks who have issues all of a sudden have somebody on their side. So they do an awful lot of good for the community. So please go out, check them out. It's mldd.org. Don't forget to check us out on raceonmain.com, and we'll see you on Main Street. Thanks, everybody.